Okay, good morning.
Good morning.
Today is October...
30th.
Today's the 30th of October, 2018, and we're in Boca Raton at the home of Kenneth Blum, right?
Blum, B-L-U-M.
Blum.
Yes.
Kenneth Blum, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Kenneth, we're going to talk, this interview is mostly going to be about your participation in the War of Independence in Israel in 1948. But before we get to that, I would like to talk to you about where you're from and your background and when and where were you born?
I was born in a little island off the coast of Long Island that no one's ever heard of. It's called Coney Island.
So you're from Brooklyn?
From Brooklyn.
When were you born?
1926.
1926.
BC.
BC.
But my father went to work in the shipyards in Baltimore.
At a young age?
When World War II was declared.
When World War II was declared?
Right.
But you were born before World War II. I want to talk to you about Brooklyn when you grew up in Brooklyn. I want to know what kind of family did you come from? Were your parents born in America?
My parents were born in America.
Uh-huh.
And I had a grandparent that was born in America.
Yeah.
And we loved America, still do. And my background from birth.
Yeah. What kind of family?
Well, I was born right before the Depression.
Right.
About 3 years later, the Depression hit.
Right.
So I had to go to foster homes with my brother. And then,
because your parents couldn't take care of you?
I guess.
Yeah.
I don't remember. But we went to foster homes with my older brother. And then when that was at age about 3. And then after 2 different foster homes, I went to Hebrew National Shelter and Guardian Society in Pleasantville, New York.
What is that, upstate?
Well, it seemed like it was upstate, but as an adult, it turned about outside of New York.
So your mother and father put you and your brother into foster care?
Yes.
Because they could not take care of you guys because of the Depression.
I don't know if that was the reason or whatever the reason. But then we went into this, when I was 8 years old, I went into this institution I just told you about.
What was it called again?
Hebrew Shelter and Guardian Society.
Hebrew Shelter?
Sheltering.
Sheltering. And
Guardian Society.
Okay.
We referred to it as Pleasantville, New York.
Okay.
It was kind of an experimental place at the time. And it was very well done. Very, very well done. And I was there for a couple of years. My brother went 1 year before me, and I wanted to be with my brother.
He was a year older than you?
3 years older than me.
3 years older than you. Did he take care of you there, or did he look out after you?
I didn't hear that.
Did he look out after you there, your brother?
Oh, absolutely. And then I went to this institution. He had to leave by the age 13. By then I was 10. And then I went back to my parents.
So you did eventually end up going back to your parents?
Yes.
Now, when you were away from your parents, did you have any contact with your parents at all? Would they see you?
With my mother.
Your mother?
I don't know what my father, I don't know what the story was, whether he was too busy trying to make a living or whatever it might have been, who knows.
So after you reunite with your parents, are you back with them in Brooklyn? You go back to Brooklyn?
No, we went to the Bronx.
To the Bronx.
But we were only in the Bronx for several months. Then we went back to Coney Island. I lived in about 21 places in 19 years.
Crazy.
No, if you don't pay the rent, you move. Times were tough in those days.
Yes, they
And, you know, it may sound hard, but my brother came up with the expression which I really liked. The children in hard times didn't have the hard times. Their parents had the pressure,
Sure.
not the children,
Sure.
because the children played.
Sure.
The parents felt the pressure of providing.
Sure. So by the time you have your bar mitzvah, you're already back at home
Yes, I was in Coney Island.
in Coney Island.
Oh,
Now, did you grow up in a Jewish neighborhood in Coney Island? Were you in a Jewish neighborhood in Coney Island?
Jewish neighborhood.
Yeah.
Coney Island had about, there was the amusement area,
Right.
and then there was kind of the living area, and then there was Seagate, which was the end of Coney Island where the rich people lived. And I forgot what I was going to say.
About Coney Island, growing up there, the Jewish
Oh,
neighborhood.
Jewish community. And I went to school
You
there.
went to public school, right?
Yeah, junior high school.
Yeah.
But then I went to
Hebrew school.
well, I hated it. I shouldn't say that.
You could say whatever you want.
Okay.
We're not judging you.
But we had to,
You had to go to
my
Hebrew
father
school
made me go, yes.
every day after school or on Sunday or
Every day after school.
every day after school. It's a pain in the
Right.
to go do that as a child. You want to go play.
Yeah,
And then
and
come
an
home.
interesting part, I was bar-mitzvahed, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
But when we were bar-mitzvahed, it's not like today.
Right.
Then you went before school. You got bar-mitzvahed and you went to school. They served a little schnapps and a little bread.
That was it.
Not bread, cake.
Candy, cake,
Whatever it was.
rogalach.
Who knows what it was in those days. And then we went to school.
Back to school.
And then I went to junior high school there. I went to high school for about 6 months. My father moved to Baltimore.
What was your father's profession?
Where was my father?
What was your father's profession? His profession.
Everyone.
So
He was a taxi driver. He was a plumber. He was an unlicensed plumber. And
did whatever he could. He did whatever he could.
he did whatever he could.
What was his name?
His name was Arthur.
Arthur.
When he died, I found that his real name was Adolf.
Adolf. And what was your mother's name?
Josephine
Josephine. And your mother's maiden name? Can you tell me your mother's maiden name?
Friedman.
Friedman. Okay. And both of your parents are born in the United States?
Yes.
Okay. So you're second generation?
No, third
Third,
generation.
because you, okay.
Yeah, I had a grandparent born in the United States.
Born in the United States. Now tell me, when your father moves to Baltimore, does he move first alone and then he brings the family, or he brings
Oh, he moved alone
alone?
with some of his friends in Brooklyn. They went sort of en masse to work in the Bethlehem Steel or the shipyards. And then they sent for my mother and I. And in those days, they didn't have superhighways. So they hired a truck, and I slept behind the
cabin?
the drivers. But it's not like what it is today. Then it was a little narrow shelf. And we came to Baltimore.
How old are you? How old are you when you moved to Baltimore? 14, 15?
I was almost 16, you know, a little bit before 16. And then
So when you moved to Baltimore, the war has already broken out.
That's
World War
correct.
II. So there's a lot of work for at the shipyard.
Yes, that was 1942.
41, 42.
And
And
they
America's in
went
the
to,
war.
and everybody was able to go to work. I worked there during the summer. I worked in the steel mill, And another summer, I worked in the shipyard as helping the electricians. And it was very interesting. It was very hectic.
Hectic.
But I thought I was big time stuff because in those days, I got $1 an hour.
$1 an hour.
Boy, and I was in heaven.
And you're
That was
16, 17 years old.
Yes.
Right? And do you go to public school in Baltimore? Or are you?
Yes, I went to public school in Baltimore. And I went to high school there. But I quit the Navy. I quit the high school in my senior year. And what happened? What did I do right
The Navy.
Oh, went to the
Went into the
Navy,
Navy.
the U.S. Navy. But
How old are you?
I was exactly 18 years old. No, I wasn't 18 years
You're
old.
younger.
I was a day before 18 years old. I was a night before I was 18 years. Why I said that? When I went to enlist, I had to have my father come to swear me in. And he was late. And I was begging him, please wait for my father so I can get in. And the reason for that, why I wanted the Navy, well, there were two reasons. One, if you didn't enlist by the time you're 18, then you couldn't enlist anymore, you would be drafted.
Okay.
And before that, but I joined the Maryland National Guard for 2 years when I was 16 till I was 18. And I became a sergeant in the Maryland National Guard. And having the experience of the Army in there, said, not for me,
Not for you.
not for
So
me.
you chose the Navy.
I'd rather have a clean bed and a meal than digging a foxhole. If the ship goes down, it goes down. But if the Army was just not for me.
So the Maryland National Guard made you decide that you want to go into the Navy.
Correct.
You don't want to be in the infantry. You don't want to dig foxholes.
That's right.
What year is it? 1945? 44.
44.
So the war is still going on.
Yes,
You go into the Navy.
correct.
Where do you go?
Well, I went to Bainbridge, to boot camp, and they gave what called GCT tests, General Classification tests. And those that had relatively higher marks were able to choose schools, type of thing. There were 2 Jews in my company of 120, and the 2 Jews went to school. The others went to sea.
And you?
Huh?
And you?
Oh, I went to school.
So there was you and one more Jew.
Right.
The 2 of you only.
Yes.
You guys did good on your exams.
Well, I don't know where he went, what school he went. But
Where did you go?
I went to a school called Aviation Electronics, mate.
Where's that located in the United States?
Well, I had very tough duty, very tough, in Jacksonville, Florida.
Jacksonville, Florida.
And there is where I really started my career in electronics. Because I learned a lot in that school.
How long is that course? How long does that course take?
I really don't remember. If I had to guess, I'd say about 8 months.
Wow, okay. And you're studying. You're like disciplined, studying.
Day and night.
Day and night.
Day and night. It was very militaristic as far as the studies were concerned. And they were held separate than the rest of the base in Jackson, which is an air base. Because everybody had to get up to Beverly, to the bugler in the morning.
And you guys?
We'd hear a recording. Ha, 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 you and me, little young jug, jug, I love thee. It was totally, it was a different world, a whole different world.
You guys were like, had better...
We were outside the base. We were on the base, but we were a separate group within the base.
Tell me, in Jacksonville, Florida, or in boot camp, Do you deal with any anti-Semitism while you're there?
Yes, but in a different way. When I was there, the armed forces still had segregation between the blacks and the whites. And I became friendly with a Jewish black from the Bronx.
A Jewish black from the Bronx?
Correct. So I invited them over to my barracks, and there was a big to-do about the whole thing, bringing the black over to the barracks. So I had some fights over that. Then ultimately I became the company commander, and as a Jew I had a lot of fights over that. And one of the reasons, there were probably other reasons, but the Jews, in those days, you had to go to religious services. So the Gentiles went to the religious services on Sunday, but the Jews had to go on Friday night. Now the problem with that was, that's when they had to clean the barracks. So you had to get down on your hands and knees and scrub the floor and everything. And the two Jews had to get dressed and go to the synagogue. That was not a very popular thing.
They didn't like that.
No, they didn't like that at all. But that's what you were required. You couldn't say, I don't want to go.
Do you remember what date you go into the Navy?
Yes.
What?
September the 11th, 1944.
And your birthday is September 12th?
September the 12th.
Okay. So you're in Jacksonville, Florida. You're doing this technical aviation course.
Yes.
Do you finish it?
Oh, yes.
And what happens to you after you finish the course?
Then based on where your grades were in the course, they listed where you can be posted, what was open. So fortunately I did well, and so others were going to what we call POE, Port of Embarkation, which means you were getting your ass shipped overseas. So I chose to go to San Diego Air Base and work there as an AEM.
What's an AEM? What does that mean?
Aviation electronics mate.
Can you explain to me what does that mean for somebody who has no idea?
Well, you would parallel the generators on the aircraft, because I was on what you call a PB-4Y2, which is a very big airplane. It's like a B-24, only had a single fin and rudder. And you take care of the magnetos and the running lights and any of the electronics within the.
So you're like a ground crew on these Navy airplanes in San Diego. It's
Right.
a big base. What's the name of the base?
It was Camp Kearney at the time. And it was staying guard duty. You can hear the coyotes howl and everything.
Yeah.
When we went back, there's a shopping center there. Not at the air base, but right there in the city.
And how long do you stay in the Navy for?
2 years.
When do you get discharged?
Almost 2 years.
2 years. So you get discharged in what, 46?
46.
46. The war's over.
The war is over.
You're 20 years old.
I came back
What are you
home.
going to do? What do you want to do in life? Like, what's your
Well, I decided to continue with the electronics. I went to radio school. And
Where? As a civilian.
as a civilian. And then after radio school, I went to work for Republic Aircraft on what was their advanced fighter plane with their radios. And then came the Israel experience.
Okay, we're gonna get to that very soon. So after the war, I'm just repeating what I understand. After the war, you get an honorable discharge from the Navy.
Yes.
I hope. And you decide to go and study radio.
Radios.
For
How to build them, how to repair them, how to do
and
everything.
This is in Baltimore?
No, in New York. My parents moved back to New York.
Moved back to New York.
Yes.
Now,
and that broke my heart because when I was 17, I met a girl in Baltimore that I really loved. Guess who it was?
I don't know. Is she here?
Yeah, I met her when she was 16. And now we have a 69th anniversary coming up.
Wow.
So,
Wow.
that played a big role in everything,
I can
yeah.
imagine. I can imagine. I can imagine. Wow. So
while I was in the Navy, this is, I think, very important because she came from a middle-class family, maybe upper middle, and she was very, very bright, and I was a dumb kid. So I said, I have to get really a real education.
Yeah, yeah.
Which I did later.
Yeah.
I went to RCA Institutes for Radio Engineering.
And that's in New York?
In New York.
Where in New York is it?
And that's a 2-year course off of 14th Street.
Okay.
And from there I got a lot of experience.
So in the war is over. Everything that has happened to the Jews in the war is exposed, the Holocaust, the concentration camps.
Correct.
You guys all know about this. And
no, what happened, my brother was already in Israel.
Okay.
So he jumped ship.
What do you mean? What do you mean?
He was a purser, an officer aboard the Quinard White Line. And when they landed
was he a merchant marine?
No, this is a passenger ship.
In what year?
He went there, I guess, at the very beginning of 48. I don't remember.
Okay, but he was just on a passenger ship, or he was part of?
He was an officer on the
boat.
On the
ship. In the Mediterranean.
Yes. And when they landed in Haifa, he jumped ship. They pulled up some rowboats or whatever it is. So some of the Jewish guys got off the ship and went on to
What did your brother do in Israel? Where did he?
He was from the Navy, a weatherman,
Really?
meteorologist.
So he helped the new Israeli army.
He was stationed in the southern part.
In the Negev?
In the Negev.
Yeah.
That's where the fighter base was.
Yeah.
When I was
So he was on an Air Force base?
Yeah, I was in with the bombers in the north, in Ramat David. So he was south, I was north.
But is your brother the one who? So you're in New York. I'm sure you guys remember the 1947, the UN partitions Palestine.
Oh, sure,
into
of course.
2 countries, an Arab and a Jewish, and the next day the Arabs attack.
Yes.
And that's basically the unofficial beginning of the War of Independence.
Correct.
You're in New York. You're studying, right?
No.
You're in school.
No, at that time I was working for Republic Aircraft.
Okay. How does somebody approach you?
Yes, somebody approached me.
Okay.
And he was telling me about the displacement of the Jews in Europe. And they needed help over there. And that's a relatively important part of the story because when the British left Palestine at that time, they destroyed all the equipment. They were very pro-Arab. And so they needed a homing device repaired, which was destroyed. And that's what I worked on. I'm jumping all over the lot
It's
here.
okay, don't worry. I'm going to bring you back.
Okay.
Okay?
And
So, do you remember who this guy was? Do you remember
No.
where did he approach you? He just walked up to you?
no, he called me and he said, I'll meet you at the, now that doesn't exist, the clock at the Astor Hotel. It was a very famous spot
Like where Cooper Union is?
in Manhattan.
In Manhattan.
And I met him.
Astor Place.
Pardon?
Astor Place. That area?
I,
You said Astor Clock. He said that he would meet you at
the clock, C-L-O-C-K, they had a big clock there, which was very famous.
Okay, so you meet this guy there.
I meet this guy
Is
there,
he,
and he tells
is he
him,
American?
yes.
Yeah.
And he said, we need guys in Israel. And they knew about my skill. Apparently, my brother must have told him, or whatever the hell it was. And so, how they can use my type of background, and I should go to help. So I went, which was very interesting, because the one had to go through the underground. At that time, there was an embargo against going to the... So when I went, this is a very interesting part of the story. When I went to sign to go to Israel, I was told to say I'm going to go to Europe as a student. So I signed going to Europe, but I had to sign a paper that said that I would not bear arms for a foreign nation. So apparently they weren't, or whatever, I don't know. So I went, and then I went through the underground, the support, whatever that means. And I met some people in France.
Marseille? Were you in Marseille?
No, Paris.
In Paris. So you flew from New York to Paris?
Yes,
By plane?
by plane,
Commercial plane?
commercial plane.
Commercial plane. Are you alone, or are there other people that are with you that,
Who the hell knows?
who knows? You're alone.
I'm alone as
They
far
give
as
you an
I know.
address in Paris where to go to. Something
No,
like
they
that.
give me a phone number.
They gave you a phone number. So you arrive in Paris,
So we
you
went,
pick up the phone,
I called,
You
and
call.
they said, here's what you do.
okay?
And I took those instructions, and I went from there to Switzerland. Geneva, not Geneva.
Zurich?
I forgot the name of the town.
Basel,
No, it's in Switzerland.
Geneva, Zurich,
I don't remember the name of the place. And there I stayed up in a hotel for 9 days. And there were obviously a couple of other guys in the hotel, but I didn't know that at the time. And then we got, I don't remember whether they called or they came and got us, whatever it is. Then we went to the airport and we flew to Italy. But you were not, oh, that was on an Israeli airplane. But it wasn't commercial. It was a commercial plane with no seats, you
it was
know.
a cargo plane
Yeah, cargo plane.
with like,
Seats on the side and all that. Then we went from there to Italy, but they were not allowed to be in Italy, so they had to take the plane to the back of the airport and refuel it. Don't ask me how they do this and all that, I don't know. So we stayed there for a while, and after we refueled it, we flew over to Haifa, not Haifa, the airport there.
Lod.
Yeah, Lud
Where
Airport.
Ben Gurion is today.
Yes.
Ben Gurion Airport today.
Right.
Now, who are the people on the plane with you?
I have no idea. And
What time of year are we talking about? Can you remember? Are we in 1948 already?
we're in 1948.
Do you remember?
Toward the end.
So Israel has already declared its independence?
Oh, yes.
Of May, it's already past May 1948.
Yes.
Israel's already declared itself an independent country.
Correct.
Okay.
So then they took me from the airport to Jerusalem, and there was a wall in Jerusalem. The Arabs were on one side of the wall, and the Jews were there on the other side, and I had a group of military people there, and they said, you go to Ramat David. Got on a bus and went to Ramat David, and that's how I got to Ramat David. But the first thing I worked on, they had a Dakota airplane. And they were trying to build a little bomb drop on the top of on the wings. And they were trying to do it with that wire, the cable, and send it to the air. And they worked on that. And I was out from there, went on a couple of bombing missions with them.
You went on a couple bombing missions?
Yes.
As a technician? Or as somebody
No.
who's throwing bombs?
As a bomb chucker.
As a bomb chucker?
Have you heard of a bomb chucker?
I have now. I have
Oh.
now.
Okay, and the way the bomb chuckers worked is the plane took off and it circled around Israel and started to decline. And they'd open the door and they had 3 marks, 2 yellow and 1 red in the center. And when they said, Chuck, you took a 50-pound bomb and you threw it out the door. Where it went, who the hell knows?
But don't they need you more for your technical experience?
But then, well, they had to get themselves situated and so on and so
Was
forth.
the whole situation a mess when you got there? Was it like very
Yeah.
disorganized and
Well, it was semi-organized.
semi?
So then they had a problem with a homing device on the base. It was off the base. And it was a building about 20, 30 square feet with stone. And around it, there was like a moat, and then there was stone in front of it. I don't know what it was before. And that's where the radio was. And on its roof was a machine gun and something to keep the sun off you. Important part of the thing, because I wouldn't know how to operate a machine gun. But that's all right, it was up there.
50, like a 50 caliber or something?
I have no idea.
Okay.
So because I worked on the radio, but the parts were destroyed, and I went to Tel Aviv to see whether I can get some spare parts for the radio and sort of rebuild it. And I met my brother there. And actually, when I first went to Ramat David, my brother came up to meet me.
So he had word already that you were
Yes.
that you were there.
Yeah,
What
but
did your parents think about you going?
Well, my parents were sort of semi-religious. You know what I mean? They went on the holidays, Friday night dinners and that kind of thing. But they weren't Orthodox and they didn't think much. Because don't forget, I was already in the National Guard. I was already in the Navy. My going doesn't mean anything. I'm 22 years old now. I'm a mature adult, so I think. So that's what they thought. And what else can I say? So we built a station, made some friends there. And when it was time to come back, the Israeli government gave us airplane tickets to fly back to the United States. But I took the tickets and cashed them in and decided to go by boat, but I'll go through Europe first. So I spent maybe 2-3 months on the continent, but I went with another Machal guy from England. I still remember his name, Bernie Spivak. We went through Europe together. We met another Jewish guy there who was studying medicine. So the three of us went, but we didn't have much money, so we'd get a quart of milk and a loaf of bread. For a 22-year-old, it's enough. And at night, we stay in the youth hostels. And around, we got to see Europe. Well, the cultural part of Europe, because I had a plan. I wanted to go see the operas, like him, and that was an interesting story too. And then I wanted to see the museum in Florence. What's the name of that museum? I don't know, there's a famous museum in Florence. Then I went.
Uffizi, was it?
Yeah. Then I went to England, and the reason I went to England is because I told you I was with this English, and they couldn't take a camera into without paying a dues.
Right.
So as an American, I put it over my shoulder, so we got it in without. I stayed with them a couple of weeks. Then they wanted, his parents wanted to send some money to some relatives here in the United States. So they gave me the money to give to their relatives, which obviously I did. And I came back to the States.
Now, I want to go back to Israel, to your so most of the time you served in Ramat David. Is that correct?
All the time.
All the time. And are there any other Machal people with you there? Are there any other?
Well,
did you actually get the radio situation under control?
Yes, we got it and got it operating, and everything was fine. And no, because I was like an officer there. And I was working with a group. And the only thing I can remember was we were bombed twice by the Egyptians. That was the only action that I saw. I was not a hero. We got bombed by the Egyptians.
Was it severe bombing or just?
They bombed. They missed the airport. No, the hell no. The reason I mentioned it as an officer, because I was in the officer's mess and we were standing out the door watching the bombing like a bunch of schmucks. The other case, I billeted with two other guys, which were Gentiles. One was an aircraft mechanic. I don't remember what the other guy did. But they told you all the equipment and everything was destroyed, so we had to try to grab pieces to make a bed. And the Air Force gave us a straw mattress to sleep on. Now, straw mattress is comfortable until one of the straws stick up straight. Then it's not so comfortable. So in Ramat David, it got cold during the winter time. There was no heat because we took a billet and then put a section of the Quonset hut and only kept maybe a quarter of it. So we built a oil drum, an empty oil drum, and we put the guys I was with, the mechanic, his name was, put sand on the bottom of it and other stuff, and built a pipe to go up through the ceiling. And as bright as we were, because they put 100 octane gasoline in there, and we stand outside the billet and make paper airplanes and put them on fire and throw them in, and when whoom, and then when everything settled down, we went in and we got heat.
Now tell me, at the Air Force Base where you were located in Ramat David, was it like an improvised air base?
No.
It was an old British air base?
It must have been an old British air base. It was a big air base, fully developed.
Do you remember when the Messerschmitts came from Czechoslovakia? Were you there?
I don't know if I was there or I heard about it. I do remember the Stuka dive bombers. After the Messerschmitts came, the Stukas and a couple of English bullfighters. Now, I don't know if you know how they got the bullfighters. Well, some enterprising Jews in England decided to make a film, a war film, with the bullfighters. And when the bullfighters went up, they disappeared.
I heard about this. This is in like 47, 48, right?
48.
48, and then they flew them to Israel.
Yes.
And these were...
I don't know when they came over. They were on the base. They may have come over there before.
You saw those bombers on the base?
Yes.
Now, what kind of bombers were they? They were German bombers?
No, English bullfighters, twin-engine bullfighters. They went into... They got them stolen from England.
From England.
So what else is new?
What else could you tell me about Ramat David?
Well, they didn't have toilets. They had outhouses. So in our billet, across the road was an outhouse. And the mechanic, Gentile mechanic that I was telling you about, was in the U.S. Air Force, and he was shot down. So one night, he says, I hear something. You know what the hell? I didn't hear a goddamn thing. He says, no, I'm telling you, I hear something. And then, though you were able to hear the airplanes, that was the second time I saw them with the bombing. So we ran across the street near the outhouse into the ditch, and we waited for the bombing to get over. I don't even think it hit any of the runways. But they were bombs, like 50-pound bombs. I don't know what they were. Those are the experiences.
So you were all the time in Ramat David?
Yes.
Did you get a chance to go to any other places, or were you were in Tel Aviv a few times?
I know a very interesting part of being in the Air Force. I get $9 a month. So the first $9 we got, I went out and I bought a broom, a dustpan to clean the goddamn place up, and we had a meal and we were shot.
You were shot?
No, what I mean is we were finished. The money was gone. But it didn't matter. You know, they served meals at the base, obviously.
Of course. And how long were you in Israel altogether, do you think? How long were you there for?
Less than a year, more than 6 months.
Okay. And then they just told you that you could go,
Yeah, that's right. And I went.
And did your brother also go
He
back?
stayed.
He stayed.
Yes.
For how long?
I have no idea. My brother and I had very different personalities. But he was the older brother, whatever it was. I think he wanted to bum around Israel for a while. I shouldn't say bum around, but...
Would he stay for like a year or two, or?
Oh, I would imagine close to a year. Don't forget when he jumped ship, my uncle got him that job. So I didn't think he was anxious about coming home and facing my uncle, because my uncle was the chief of the custom inspectors, and it kind of put him on the spot. So I think that played a role with him, not with me.
And when you went back to the United States, did you have any problems with the State Department or with your passport, or did you?
Well, it's interesting you mention that. I was working for other companies, but ultimately I went to work for American Electronics Lab in Pennsylvania. And they were doing spook work with the government, so you had to get security clearance. So lo and behold, you see these guys coming through my neighborhood with hats on and ties and a jacket, and they're talking to everybody about me. And we used to have a discussions group once a month, whatever it is. We talk about different things. We have somebody from the archdiocese, have somebody from the Jewish groups, or whatever. We just talk in general. And then they decided, the Navy decided to call me, say, well, you have to take a polygraph for the security clearance. So I went with them down on M Street in Washington, D.C., and I took the polygraph. But before I took the polygraph, I said, wait a minute, can I tell you something off the record? Oh, yeah. I said, what is it? I said, don't ask me if the United States goes to war against Israel, which side I would fight on. So they laughed and they said, okay, we won't ask you that question. So they asked me a lot of questions. I don't remember what the hell they were, but I never really got the security clearance.
You never got it?
No, wait a minute. For a while, several months. So I went to the Senator Brewster, the United States Senate, and I told him the story. And lo and behold, I got my security clearance. That was an interesting story.
But coming back into the States physically, after you spent time in Israel and then you were in Europe, you didn't have problems getting, but your passport was never stamped when you left, was it?
Oh, that's another very interesting thing. My passport was never stamped when I got there. What they did is they gave us a piece of paper, which they stamped, which was whatever they call legally. And they said, here's a piece of paper, but never show it to anybody unless you have to. So I had the passport and I had this piece of paper, which I kept in my passport. And that's what they did. And when I left, I don't remember whether they had to stamp it, but I got it stamped in different countries.
Did you have any family in Israel? Uncles, aunts, cousins? Nothing. Nothing.
My brother.
Your brother, of course. Of course.
I do tell a story about when we're building the radio. With the radio, you have to have an antenna. And the antenna has to be high. And there was a wooden thing about 100 feet high. And there was an antenna on top of it. So I'd have to go up this wooden thing, and as I'd go up here, made me a little nervous. But I did what I had to do, it came down. That was an interesting experience also.
Safety. A lot of safety measures.
Later we went to Israel.
Uh-huh.
And this building I was in, which was way off the base, was part of the base.
It was part of the
Now,
base.
today.
Yeah.
And we met with the Air Force pilots. At the time, I think
How was that experience for you to go back and go to that same place?
Oh, it was
See it
wonderful.
much more.
It was wonderful. Because they gave me sort of a special treatment. I got to meet the Air Force pilots at the time. I don't remember what year it was, but whatever it was. And I was able to get on the Florida Knesset and meet with some of the people there.
And it was Rabin you met with, what?
I met Rabin.
When he was prime minister?
Yeah, I don't know if he was prime minister then, but I met Rabin at the American Embassy in Washington, D.C.
Uh-huh.
And he gave me a set of wings. And everything was, I felt very good about it.
Is that when he was the ambassador?
He was obviously ambassador at the
That was in
time.
the 70s. Yeah.
I don't remember. There's a lot I don't remember.
Do you still have the wings?
Do you still have the
Yes,
rings?
yes, I'm
Yeah?
going to give it to my grandson.
You're going to give it to your grandson?
Yes, I have two grandsons. One, I already gave the Machal medal to one grandson, and the other grandson I'll give the
Air Force
wings, the Air Force
You
wing.
got from Yitzhak Rabin.
Yes.
Kenneth, is there anything else that we didn't talk about that you'd like to mention in this interview? Take your time.
Yeah. When I got to the officers' mess, they serve food, obviously.
Excuse me, when you got to what offices?
Huh?
I didn't understand. When you got
The officers' mess. Commissioned officers' mess.
in
I wasn't a
Ramat,
commissioned officer, but I was an officer. And I had breakfast there. Coming from America, herring for breakfast is not a popular thing. And I had cauliflower and other things. And what I do remember is I looked down, the cauliflower had little specks of dirt on it. I went to brush it off. They were bugs.
Bugs.
All right, they brushed it off, you ate it. That was an interesting thing I remember for a long time. Oh, and the bathroom, I wouldn't go to the outhouse. Why, I don't know, I just wouldn't go to the outhouse. But there's a kibbutz right on the Air Force base. I forgot, Nahalal or...
No, not Nahalal. Nahalal is another place, but I can't remember it either, but yes.
But there was a kibbutz right on there, and I'd go up there, and the place was immaculate. And I used their bathrooms. That's it.
Kenneth, I appreciate your time. And
It
your
was my
story.
pleasure. So, nice meeting you.
Nice meeting you too.
I don't know what you're going to do with this.
Gonna put it in an archive, and hold on a second. I'm gonna turn this off.